Good morning, everyone. My name is John Kelly. I'm the Managing Director of Atomo Diagnostics, and welcome to our first quarterly activity statement for the new FY24. I'm going to very briefly talk to some of the key highlights for the quarter. We'll then jump into each of those main activities and drivers of growth and go through that in a little bit more detail. We will then wrap up the presentation by quickly summarizing the key areas of focus for the coming months, and then we'll look to move to a Q&A session at the end. And please feel free to put any questions into the webinar box, and we'll move forward with those at the end of the presentation. So in terms of highlights for the quarter, obviously we're very pleased to see a resumption of growth in the HIV business, 176,000 tests sold during the period. Primarily Newfoundland Diagnostics in the UK. That's becoming a very important relationship for us, and we've expanded that to now include Colombia as another country that they're entering on our behalf, and we're in discussions with them on further markets. Outside of Newfoundland, we've made further progress with Viatris and delivered a quantity of tests to an African Ministry of Health, with further orders expected as we roll through the rest of this financial year. Outside of HIV, we've continued to support NG Biotech with their efforts in the rollout of their product in markets where they're responsible for go-to-market, and we're seeing some of that come through as Pascal orders. In Australia, we are waiting for a TGA approval. We'll talk a little bit more about that in more detail, as well as where we're at with our progress to market with the US FDA as well. In terms of point-of-care OEM business, we delivered orders for 151,000 tests for the period. That's primarily to NG Biotech, also to Lumos, as those companies start to restock and expand their territory and efforts in the market. And we'll also talk in the main section a little bit more about some of the new OEM opportunities that we're seeing, and we think a lot of that is coming out of the US off the back of the 510K that Lumos got for their FebriDx test. To actual quarterly performance, $1.21 million of revenue unaudited for the quarter, and that's more than double the revenue for the prior quarter. So we're very pleased to see that growth in the business, primarily through the HIV sales to Newfoundland. We also saw, as you know, a resumption in OEM ordering for Pascal, and that was just over 300,000. Happy with that improvement off last quarter. In terms of cash receipts, obviously there's a lag between orders and cash. We received 841,000 in the quarter. Obviously a lot of the Q1 revenue coming through now in Q2. We finished the quarter with 6.9 million on hand and no debt. And subsequent to that, in this period, Q2, we received a further 761,000 from the ATO as part of last year's R&D rebate for R&D activities. So that's the highlights. Let's jump into some of these activities in a little bit more detail. So obviously with HIV, we're seeing growth across various parts of the business, and that's very encouraging. We had an order for 200,000 devices from Newfoundland as part of that initial stocking order. We've delivered 75% of that, 150,000 devices. They are now launched successfully into Tesco's, and that's a very significant development for us. That's a mainstream retail channel in the UK. Tesco's the biggest supermarket chain in the UK. And we're now very excited to see that expansion of relationship with Newfoundland move beyond the UK. They're looking to launch into Europe. They've just come back from a conference in Eastern Europe where they see a lot of demand. Eastern Europe has higher levels of HIV infection than Western Europe, so there's a lot of interest in the product there. And we also announced last week an extension of that relationship into Colombia as well. So we see them as a very valuable partner, a very important partner, and we're hugely excited about that Tesco's channel. We do anticipate some significant media in the UK in the coming months around that, and we think that will not only drive demand for the HIV test, but I think open up opportunities for other applications for us as diagnostics now becomes increasingly mainstream and increasingly retail focused in its reach. In Australia, we're seeing significant opportunities over the medium term, primarily driven through the emergence of a public health channel for HIV self-testing. In the private sector, we continue to see new clinics and pharmacies being added to the market for the product. And on the private sector side, a lot of interest from both federal and state governments around the ability for HIV self-testing to reach populations that aren't currently testing either at all or in sufficient numbers for the efforts that Australia is trying to make to reduce HIV transmission. NAPWHA recently had a soft launch of a program which was funded for 12,000 tests, and that allows people from certain cohorts to come online and order a test easily through that NAPWHA platform, and we're interfaced to deliver from that order platform. That kicked off a couple of weeks ago, and it's looking to be promoted quite widely in those circles, and we expect to see some significant demand through the period for FY24 and hopefully beyond. We've already started to see some orders coming through from that channel, so very excited about that, because it not only provides additional sales, but it starts to show the validity of HIV self-testing within a public health perspective. And I think that's extremely useful for our discussions with both state and federal governments. And we are talking to the federal government about our partnership with NAPWHA and the ability to expand that program beyond the initial 12,000 tests that are funded through the pilot. We've also had, over the last year, success in South Australia and Queensland with vending machine programs in on-sex premises as well as in universities. The interesting thing about those pilots is they target quite a high percentage of first-time testers or infrequent testers, and that's a vitally important cohort to target for infection management, because they're not typically testing in the current system. And that's been quite an interesting development, and one that's quite valuable to public health. We've taken that to all of the major state departments of health. We've had a very good response, and we're expecting to see that vending machine program and that delivery model scale nationally, and we expect New South Wales to be the next state after South Australia and Queensland to start to roll that out. So I think at both the state and federal level, there is a recognition of the need for HIV self-testing, and to be part of the policy, and we think that'll drive solid growth over the next number of years. We're also supporting Newfoundland and the UK with some similar public health related engagements. If we then move on to global health, we received an order from Beatrice for just over 50,000 units, and that's for delivery to an African Ministry of Health, and that's part of what we anticipate to be a tender program that would then support further orders through the rest of FY24 and quite potentially into early 25. Beyond HIV, obviously pregnancy is the next large opportunity in terms of finished products that we're looking to bring to market. We submitted to the Australian TGA back in early calendar 23. We were in a queue for a number of months. We were advised by them in August that an assessor had been assigned, and we're now waiting for that substantive response from TGA. We're ready to respond to that as soon as we receive it. And on the assumption that we don't have to do further clinical testing or provide further additional data that we don't have to hand, then we would be hopeful of that approval coming through in the coming months. And we're very excited about the opportunity for the product in Australia post that approval. We had an independent market research effort undertaken, very excited about the results. About a 20% to 25% of women are extremely interested in a blood test that provides either earlier detection or more accurate detection in that early phase. And that was particularly pronounced among first-time pregnant women as well as older women who were trying to get pregnant. And that's a cohort that has some willingness to pay a premium for that product. And we're very excited about that opportunity, because that's a very sizable, established, addressable market in Australia as it is globally. And that also supports a lot of interest from potential commercial partners in other markets, including the US, where we're looking to bring the product to market through FDA. To support that, we've been working with NG Biotech to develop a pre-sub package for FDA. That was submitted last month, and we have a meeting scheduled in December. And that should allow us to finalize with FDA a clinical plan that meets their requirements and allows us to finalize not only the clinical protocol and the budget, but then give to our potential commercial partners real clarity on the time to market, the cost to market, and the opportunities for the claims that we should be able to get post that approval, and we hope to be the first OTC approved blood test in the US market. We've certainly been able to secure best-in-class approvals in other jurisdictions, tier 1 jurisdictions like Australia. So we're very hopeful that that's a channel that we can be a first mover into. And again, for application that has a very sizable addressable market that we can target with a product that's not only unique, but has some really powerful benefits to the user. OEM business, we are extremely excited to see our customers back buying Pascal devices. We have supported them in their restocking and also in their push into new markets. We also continue to promote the 510K approval that we got for the platform through the Lumos FebriDx approval by 510K. That has, I think, opened up a market opportunity for us in the US. We have seen an increase in inbound OEM inquiries from the US in particular. We were ACC promoting the platform. I've just returned from Health 23. The 510K helps enormously in those conversations. I think having a clear path to market for the OTC pregnancy test will further reinforce the ability for us to deliver best-in-class products to market, but also to deliver best-in-class platforms to partners that want to bring their products to market. And we have 3 or 4 live proof of concept opportunities in discussion, or hopeful that in the later stage of this FY that translates through into some agreements, some supplier development agreements. Interestingly, we're also having a number of discussions to look at repurposing our IP and our capabilities into reconfigured platforms that sit outside of lateral flow. So looking to move into microfluidic and biosensor applications, which move us into another part of the market, but still based on IP that companies recognize that we have and capabilities that we deliver around ease of use, better customer compliance, better customer satisfaction, and ultimately the ability to get OTC home approvals. So if we move on to the actual finances in a little bit more detail, as I mentioned previously, 1.21 million of unaudited revenues. That was primarily made up of HIV sales to Newfoundland and OEM sales to our existing customers. We are pleased to see that revenue up from the prior quarter. That's been delivered through 75% of that initial order going to Newfoundland. We still have 25% of that order to deliver in this period, and we are expecting a further order under the contract from Newfoundland at the end of the year, and that will then support further sales and growth into that channel over the second half of FY24. Cash receipts from the quarter at 41, with more to come from this quarter as we get invoicing through that revenue. We also, post the end of the quarter, as I mentioned, received 761,000 from the ATO, and that has allowed us to move towards year-end, calendar year-end, with a good balance in terms of cash on hand, and that allows us to execute on our plan for the rest of this FY and beyond. And we'll just talk a little bit, I think, to wrap up the presentation on what that use of funds and what that business priority looks like for us. So obviously, continued growth of the HIV business underpinning our current revenue trajectory. We are excited to see Newfoundland get that contract and continue to push into European markets and look to scale up similar types of partners, we hope, to Tesco's in the UK. We're also excited about the recognition from public health that procurement of HIV self-tests is an integral part of the move towards elimination of HIV. So over the medium term, excited to see that growth, and that's one of our key priorities. Obviously, the launch of the pregnancy test is mission critical for us, not just here in Australia and New Zealand, but also to support commercial engagement with partners who want to see that happen in the US as well. We have announced to market our intention to bring behind pregnancy a rapid home ferritin test, which is an iron deficiency or an anemia screening test. We successfully completed this last month the process validation of the ferritin production at our facility in South Africa. And that now allows us not only to complete that part of the product dossier for approval, but it also allows us to have product now made available to support a quick clinical trial that we're undertaking this month. And we expect to have that completed by Christmas, which would allow us to then submit that product for application approval to both the TGA and our notified body for CE mark under the new IBDR, and we expect to get that done in Q3, just after Christmas. That allows us to then bring, over the next 12 months, pregnancy and then ferritin to market and start to build on that opportunity that's existing with the move into consumer health that we're seeing, not only with pharmacies, but increasingly with supermarket retailers. As well as continue to support OEM customers like Lumos and NG Biotech. We're excited about the inbound inquiries we've received. We're working to provide quotes, proof of concept samples, and some proposals around how we can supply interested parties, as well as continuing to go to conferences and demonstrating the bona fides of the platform, the credentials that we've got in market with customers, the regulatory approvals, and most recently, obviously, being the very important US 510K. So that's our main priority, as well as continuing to promote the product to the market and continuing to grow those revenue streams. I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. Happy to now move on to answer any questions that have been submitted. There are no open questions, it appears. I'm happy to wait a minute or two. If someone is interested in putting a question to us, please do so. We did have a question that we received in advance of this webinar, which related to our strategy. And the question was, what's the strategy for the business post-COVID and how does that impact revenue growth? I think the strategy, I hope, is clear. It's to be the market leader in consumer home testing for blood. That's a market that's growing rapidly post-COVID. Before COVID, supermarkets were not stocking rapid test products like HIV. So that opportunity now exists. It's growing. It's one that the larger companies are aware of. It's one that a lot of new players like Newfoundland have entered. And our platform is, I think, ideally positioned to be the market leader, the gold standard in delivering those types of tests. And I think the success we've had with Newfoundland and their success entering the market through Tesco's is, I think, validating that. And obviously, pregnancy's the next cab off the rank, but one that I think is even bigger in terms of its opportunity for us strategically, just because the pregnancy market is bigger than the HIV market, certainly in Europe ever will be. We've got a couple of questions coming through. Thank you for that. What's the social media strategy for the company? We do have an active social media strategy to target not just partners and the market more broadly, but investors. We are limited to what we can do in terms of product promotion because we have regulated products. So there are some TGA restraints around social media, use of influencers, those types of things. But certainly where we can, we do look to employ media, both at the printed media level as well as on socials. Does the cash burn accelerate this year, or will it be stable? The cash burn for the last quarter has averaged just over $500,000 a quarter. We do expect, as we roll out into the second half of the year, to see post the pregnancy approval, pregnancy revenue starting to help the bottom line. And with that, an expectation that burn rate will start to come down as we move into calendar year 24 and beyond. And is it stable? So it's stable. We've made some efforts to reduce our OPEX. We pulled a sizable amount of money out of our ongoing costs moving forward each month. And I think that allows us to run lean and then start to grow the revenue. So we do expect that cash burn to be stable and then to over time start to reduce. What would AT1 need more funds before getting approval from FDA? In our agreement with NG Biotech, we do have a funding arrangement where both parties contribute to the approval. We did top up some funds mid-year, 2.4 Aussie, 2 billion Aussie to help support some of that activity, particularly the clinical trials post this 510K meeting. And that will, along with the contributions from NG Biotech, get those clinical trials done. We are in discussions with partners in the US who are interested in accessing the product in either e-commerce or retail pharmacy channels. And there is some expectations that there will be some contributions potentially from them. But we do need to get through that FDA pre-sub and be clear on the go-to-market clinical protocols before we can get those partners kind of ready to move forward. Why was Colombia chosen by Newfoundland? They have business contacts there. They were very bullish about their ability to register and sell product in Colombia. They've proven to us that they can deliver in markets where they say they can deliver. So we were more than happy to to sign over Colombia, it does come with a 30,000 unit initial commitment from them. So I think that's very encouraging that they were prepared to do that. Are there any cost reductions initiatives right now? Yes, there are. We've been implementing cost reductions over the last couple of quarters. We've pulled close to $750,000 on an annualized basis out of the cost base of the business, and that's as lean as we can go. We do, as a regulated manufacturer of product, particularly Class 4 HIV product, need to keep certifications in place. We've got a very rigorous audit schedule across the various regulators. There's costs associated with supporting and delivering that. So the business has an inherent cost base, but that cost base is managed, and it has been reduced materially over the last 12 months. Unless there's any further questions, I was going to suggest that we close this out. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. I'd like to thank our investors for their continued support. We're very excited about the Newfoundland Tesco's opportunity, not just for HIV, but moving forward for other products. And we're also very excited about the market interest that we've seen so far from our look at the opportunities for pregnancy and ferritin. So please stay tuned. We will certainly come to you with updates as they're warranted, and we look forward to talking to you at our AGM next week if anyone should care to either visit us in person or join online. So thank you very much.